Okay. So, Keith, do you mind looking behind you? Take a few steps forward. Just a little bit closer. Just right in front of it.
Like that?
That's it.
Okay.
Alright. You see the man with the blue box on his head?
Yeah.
Okay, go on and reach for him.
With this
Just put your hand out. Yeah. Just. Oh no! Don't teleport there. Yeah. Let go.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Alright. So when I say touch him, like just go for him, and press trigger. When I say yeah. That's it. So take a step back. You see the bow?
Yeah.
Can you pick it up? Are you assume you're right-handed?
Yeah.
So pick it up with your left hand.
With the trigger.
That's it. Yeah. That's the trigger. Yeah. There you go. Now put the arrow in. Hold it. So use your right hand. Pull the trigger. And pull the bow back. Yeah. Pull it all the way back. And then let go.
Who am I shooting at? Or the
so
target?
Basically, yeah, just practice on target. Your objective is to shoot the lads waving the flags, and the barrels, the TNTs to help you. So that's to blow them up. And you see red blues there for health. All right.
Got it.
So you're ready? Shoot the man waving the flag.
Oh, a little bit short. Oh.
We'll unpack what virtual reality is. What is your sense of what you've come upon so far in terms of virtual reality?
Well, I'm a little bit of a technophobe, if I'm honest, so I'm probably a little bit behind in this world. But
it may be a good thing. It may be
yeah,
a quality nowadays.
Honest, like I just said, I'd be off Facebook, Twitter, I'd be off all of them. I'm a huge fisherman, angler, so that's my thing.
Okay.
But to get back to virtual reality, I have studied a bit, but more importantly, the first real proper virtual reality experience that I had was very recently. I worked on the movies Now You See Me, so 2 of them have gone out, and they're magic and mentalism movies with Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine, Woody Harrelson, and so on. So I was involved in the script of those and then the writing of them, and then worked with the actors. But the director John Chu, he's a massive into technology. You know, he's got the latest iPhone, and he'd stay up late at night, and he'll buy the iPhone 8, whatever's going on. So I was out in his house recently. In LA, and he put me into this virtual reality world, and it's the first time. Of course, we've all experienced virtual reality on some level, but this was the first time I was in a real proper modern system, let's put it. And my God, it did open up my eyes a little bit. I was fascinated by this world, and then probably like yourself, I immediately started thinking, well, how can we apply this in a positive manner and utilize it in my world? And I haven't figured that out yet. But when I was in there, I did forget about reality.
Yeah, right.
Okay, which I guess what is the point of it. And it wasn't a game that we were playing. He gave me these 2 sticks in my hands. I don't know the name, sensors or whatever.
Yes, motion controllers. Controllers.
And basically, I was building my own virtual reality world, and it was a 360-degree experience. And then if you walk near walls, this red thing comes up to let you know, because it senses that you're near a wall, so you're not going to walk in and hit your head or whatever. And it was amazing to me. And after that, I don't really know how we can apply it in our worlds, because it's so new, I suppose. But you probably have more thoughts on that than me.
It's stretching the imagination, isn't it? And I think that's the exciting thing about it, because there has been, I don't want to say for a while there's been any gaps. Life is going on as it needs to. It's rich and it's interesting, but in terms of technologies are really looking at the world in very different ways. I think we were due something like this. And I was very interested to get your thoughts on it as well as everything else, because it is a little bit of a new frontier. And that's what's exciting. It's like the Old West when it comes to, new psychological breakthroughs. But what interested me most about it from a psychological perspective was not just that these experiences were very interesting, that they were cool, that they were impressive, but what actually interested me most was taking the headset on and off and moving between those worlds.
Yeah.
Because for a while afterwards, I'd be kind of having these images and I'd be remembering things and dream states, a bit of inception going on, I suppose. And that reminded me of the work I do every day with clients in the office. So it's very interesting, the parallels
those
there.
States, without the headset, if you like. I think for me, and I haven't given it a huge amount of thought, but for me, I think it could revolutionize the way both psychologists and hypnotists work. And what I mean by that is, if you can imagine in your clinic having a virtual reality headset, so that getting somebody to really imagine and believe that they're on a plane. For example, if they have a fear of flying. And you can have all kinds of programs in there then that they can take control of the plane, or that the plane is out of control and that they're going through bad turbulence, or perhaps, God forbid, that it may be coming into some kind of a crash landing or something. But to make that really real in their mind, because we, as hypnotists, we try to get them to imagine these things. Now, very often, as you know, some clients and some people just have a problem imagining things.
Yeah,
I think the virtual reality world, they don't really have to imagine it, because for all intents and purposes, they're there.
Absolutely.
They're in that so I think it could have massive beneficial effects in the future once we probe it a bit more, marry it a bit more, and then open the discussion. And obviously you're doing a lot of the research here, at least in Dublin, if not in Ireland. I don't know if there's anybody else doing the work that you're doing.
Well, there's a bunch of people doing it, but what's very interesting about it is that they come from very different backgrounds.
Yeah.
You get these computer science people, psychology people, therapy people, people in entertainment, you name it. They're all, and I think that's what's really healthy about it, because you realize with this type of thing that nobody's got it cornered. Yeah. And nobody even, I don't think, thinks they do.
Right, yeah.
There's that much humility in it as a result.
There you go. So what I recommend you do is go look on the cup.
Yeah.
North face. That's it. And just look over the edge. Hold the button again.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it.
Ooh.
There you go. So I don't you can jump if you want. There's no worries, but it's one of those instinctive reactions.
I wish the wall, the yellow didn't come up. You want to look well a bit more.
So then we
came from there, did I?
I
come from up there. Oh.
No, you came from down, so it's other side. Yeah, let me know when you're ready, I'll show you something else.
Yeah, this is like the stuff that I did in Disneyland, where they flew us over and down, and it's immense.
Oh, is that soaring over?
Yeah, soaring.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that's really
I've
good.
been on it, yeah?
The air conditioning is great.
Yeah,
really
it's soaring.
Yeah.
My little fella thought it was real,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Well, that's the
controls.
It is. It's brilliant. The shadows of the controls are on the mountain.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to go?
Alright. That's up to you, so you can go to the top and have a look at the rocks, just look at the detail. It's like, it really is kind of like a capture of real life.
Yeah.
Now, obviously it blurs up when you get close, but hopefully with better technology that will go away.
And they took this, is this video footage or stills they took?
No, so you can do this thing called
So see the birds, sorry, were they real birds or
No, that's a game model.
Right.
Just the rocks, they're all real, they're all scanned in. They use photographs, just take iPhone images and stuff like that. Yeah.
You want to do it at the top? No. It's this thing, even fear of dogs and stuff, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It is going to be.
But imagine somebody comes in saying, I got fear of dogs and mountains. That's what I mean. You get immediately.
Yeah, it can be anything, yeah.
Immediately. You can cut them somewhere.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Dog would open. Go on, jump! Obviously, going off the mountain. Thanks, buddy.
As you can imagine, horror virtual reality has become a real genre.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
only starting, but my God.
That'd be mad.
Just that sense of you can never relax and you know what's behind you. Because a TV can do that to some degree, but oh my God, what this can do. So Ernest Hemingway has a great quote, which is the majority of the story exists beyond the page. And what that gets me thinking about is the fact that virtual reality, although in its current manifestation is a little bit new and shiny, although even that, to be fair to some of the veterans in the field, it's been around a long time over the past few decades, some really good work going back decades people have been doing on it, but it's become kind of commercially viable today, which is kind of democratized it, I suppose, a bit. But what's really interesting is if you think about it, I suppose a book is a virtual reality device. Isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
It's there. The old Irish shanachie sitting around the fire telling the story a few thousand years ago. Yeah. This is virtual reality happening because of the picturing.
Yeah.
what comes up there, though, is what happens, like in the example you gave of working with a phobia, something like that. What happens when you take some of the load off the person's imagination and start giving it to them? And of course, there could be advantages and disadvantages to that. One of the disadvantages could be they're doing less work. You want them to engage more. But of course, it could be the opposite. It could be that actually by taking the cognitive load off them, you free them up to engage with it a bit more. Like if you're doing your accounts, my account, November, my accounts are coming up. If I don't try and hold it all in my imagination, but I use virtuality and computers to set it out in front of me, that's not a way for me to ignore it. It's a way for me to kind of offload so I can see it and then work with it a little bit more effectively. Any thoughts on that interplay between taking the load off imagination, putting it on technology, and the mix between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just going to have to experiment with it first and foremost. I don't know if anybody's done a huge amount of experimentation with this. What I will say is, I do find that, you know, when I'm hypnotizing people, that they do find, some people find that they just can't visualize the way I need them to visualize. Now, when that happens, I just change the course of action that I'm using with that person.
Sure, yeah.
But first and foremost, I think they have to do the work. That's the first thing. What I mean by that is, I wouldn't be a fan of taking the workload off of them.
Right.
Because I think people need to understand that.
Physio, again, isn't it? Physiotherapy.
Yeah, whatever issue that they have, they got to push through that issue. And it's going to be uncomfortable at times. Yeah. It's going to take work on their behalf. Folks. I'm trying to hit him. Jesus.
We didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were just curious. How dangerous is it to peek?
Start kicking you now, lads. Be careful. What is that up there? Am I supposed to shoot that? The big spider yolk? Is that a big boss or something? Where are they all gone?
You imagine as a thought experiment this new device, and it's kind of like an iPhone or something, only it's even better. It also does your taxes for you. It also talks to your wife for you. It also does your laundry. It does everything. You don't need to do anything. You can simply stop living. You know, there's a certain point when you listen to that, you go, hey, isn't it? And you feel like you're being robbed at a certain level.
Yeah, we can't become robotic, and that's why I don't think for me at least, I don't think virtual reality should take the work effort away.
Sure.
But I think it definitely can assist in, for example, if you take a fear of spiders, for example, you as a hypnotist or you're not going to have spiders, snakes, and people have weird phobias, weird is the wrong word, actually, unusual phobias, such as fear balloons. I dealt with fear balloons on RLAM. To an extent, this woman had not been at a family party or had been in a restaurant for years because for fear that somebody else in the restaurant might be having a party and there could be a balloon there. So these are unusual fears, but massively inhibitive in the person's life. But you know, you don't know what's walking through the door day to day, and you're not going to have all these different objects, and that's where virtual reality can really assist. And really
there's room for a real toolkit in that. One interesting point. Lev Vygotsky is another great guy in this type of work, and he was back in the kind of Soviet era when he was doing his work, and he was very ahead of his time, really. And a point he makes, which was interesting, he was talking about people with learning difficulties, and you know, back at that time, many decades ago, could have easily been a time where people like that were marginalized. And he said, no, hold on a minute. He said, what they need is a kind of a scaffolding or a support. If you can bring in certain things for them, that will allow them to think certain thoughts they otherwise couldn't think. And we all seem to need that in different ways. I like to think that we're all stupid in our own way, and that's where community comes in, isn't it? Is that sense of mutual support.
Nobody's an expert, in my opinion. You know, I mean, some people, of course, have more knowledge, and I need to learn from those people. And then I've got a lot more knowledge than other people, and they need to learn from me. And we all need to stand on each other's shoulders to build this pyramid that hopefully, that when we get to the top, that at least the general public can then understand what's going on and in the fields of not just our world, but the virtual reality world. And they don't just sit down in front of the TV with the virtual reality headset and just play games. There's fun in that. There's relaxation. There's time for that.
What?
Backwardly, in the back of my mind, I always knew what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to become a full-time entertainer. I didn't know it was going to follow on from that into anything else other than that. But I think the most important lesson that I learned is to absolutely follow your passion. And if you don't have a passion, this is the thing, people say follow your passion. And I question people, well, what's your passion? And they could be 50 years of age, and they still don't know what their passion is. And I say to them, well, look, how much time have you actually spent creatively finding your passion?
Right.
You know, and a passion is just maybe something that you like, and then spread out of that. So it could be art, but not just paint. You know, I could say to somebody, what do you like?
Yeah.
Well, I like going to museums, looking at art. Well, have you ever picked up a paintbrush and just tried it yourself? Have you ever done that? No. Have you ever picked up a pencil and just tried to copy something on YouTube, and then a couple of weeks later maybe just do it on your own and doodle, and then maybe you could spread out of that and look online, and this is where I think the online world is good, the virtual reality world is good, because then you can look online. Art isn't just art now. It's not just a painting on a wall. You can make a living out of putting frames around an art, become a framer, if that's the right terminology.
Yes.
Art hostels that can fit through doorways. Outdoors, you better have enough ammo for the bigger specimens.
If you stop and reflect forward into the future, where we can kind of imagine, I suppose, everything we already have, but more and more and more stuff, more and more information, more and more screens. I tweeted recently, check it out, a video where they're showing a kind of an augmented future that's not too far away, and it's mental. You know, it really is absolutely mental. And of course, it's hard to even imagine what it's going to be. As the information piles up and the sensory stimulation increases, the potential for distraction and division of attention.
Yes.
With your skills, with your interests, and just your personal experience that you share there, what's your sense of what is going to be key in balancing that and staying sane through it into the future?
Well, that's a good question, because I do find that the more the world progresses, and the more that we're in a virtual reality world, a technology world, the more people are going a bit nuts, and they're going a bit crazy, and I think it's overwhelming sometimes. The amount of information that's there.
Yes.
And, you know, I think a lot of people out there will relate to the fact that they may be depressed or worried or anxious. And we know that now because, look, we're talking about it openly a lot.
Yes.
People like Brezzy, you know, he's come out and he's done a lot of
campaign,
talks. And it's very good, because I suppose a lot of people were trying beforehand, but they weren't being heard. At least somebody in a public eye can be heard.
There's a platform now.
Yeah. And I think it's fantastic. But then you realize just how many people out there have problems and issues.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, technology used the right way can help those issues, but then it can be very overwhelming. So into the future, I mean, really, who knows? But I just think mindfulness, it is a good word. We hear it being bandied around a lot, but we have to be mindful of how we use technology, and, you know, we have to be mindful of ourselves, of other people, and spend time on ourselves. I mean, it sounds like such a cliche, simplistic example, but I love nothing better than to kick me kids outdoors on sunny days. We go down to the forest,
right,
and just get away from technology. I also ban technology from the dinner table. Simple, cliched example, but a lot of people don't do that. They sit there with their dinners on the laps, and they're mopping up the dinners. And I think the more technology progresses, I mean, you'll actually find people in 10 years' time, they'll have the virtual reality headsets on at dinner, you know, and we gotta push that away a little bit.
And that's where it gets complicated, because, you know, when you talk about imagination, or even reading a book maybe, or even watching a screen, and then you talk about being outdoors in nature and smelling the trees and feeling the earth and all of that. Of course, what virtual reality and mixed reality is trying to achieve is this real interesting synthesis between them, where you've got tactile, haptic feedback, you've got smell sensors, where you have all of this. So this division, which at least we always would have known about, kind of starts to blend and disappear. That's going to be pretty interesting. Yeah,
it's crazy. I was on a ride in a theme park. It was in, I want to say, Disneyland in South LA, the one in South LA. So I was there not so long ago with kids. And we went on this ride, and it was crazy. They put us in this thing, and like that, they put the headsets all came down. We didn't even have to put them on. They just kind of came down in front of us. Yeah. But we were on this extendable arm, which shot us out into this virtual world. And like that, they had mist and steam coming down and smells.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you now, for that moment, I was in another world. Like I was gone. I was full in.
Yeah.
Imagination went in and wanted willingly to go in and stayed in there for whatever it was, 5 minutes. And my 4-year-old next to me was like, "Dad, are we really in Mars? Are we on Mars, Dad?" I was like, "No, this is a ride, but enjoy the ride."
Yeah.
But you are blending that whole thing, and I just think for me, I'd err on the side of, look, we got to stay real. We got to know that the table is the table. It's there in front of us. And, virtual reality will be beneficial. I'm sure it's going to become massively beneficial in not just our world, but in the medicine world, like just the world in general. But, people have to remember to take the headset off and get back to reality sometimes,
Children, and I mean a lot of younger people even, not that we're not reasonably young, but young, the internet, Wi-Fi, the non-existence of these things, how much they're taken for granted. What will be very interesting is a world where, what you mean, there wasn't virtual reality, there wasn't mixed reality, there wasn't everything on demand, there wasn't minority report interfaces. And that's kind of the scary bit, because there won't really be any memory of anything before it. It'll become very implicit.
Yes.
And there won't be a notion that there can be anything beyond it.
Yeah. That's just, I mean, I've come to the conclusion that that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, my kids...
You're going to be the old guy in the corner in a few decades saying, "I told you so." Yeah,
my kids are in that world, and they actually do understand.
Yeah.
Like I've explained to them, I said, you guys don't realize that when I was 16, the internet was pretty much invented roughly around then.
Yeah.
And I was like, they were like, "Well, what did you do before that?" I was like, "Well, we had landlines." "What's that, Dad?" Like, I didn't even have a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And and to some extent, I'd be more on the hesitant or resistant sides. In other words, my kids, they've got iPads just to play with or whatever, but they don't have phones yet. They're not constantly on these things. Whereas some of their friends are going to school and they're looking down, they're playing with iPhones and whatever. And that's just me. But I do understand that, and I've come to the conclusion that that's just the world as it progresses. But here's the funny thing. I was only thinking about this the other day. Like, it literally only dawned on me the other day. Yeah. I was talking to my wife about memories and just, what's your earliest memory? And
just a quick interjection. Is she sick of you talking to her about that kind of thing?
No, because she's a psychologist. She's not a practicing psychologist, but she studied psychology. So she's interested as much as I am in this stuff. But we're just chatting about, the fact that what's your earliest memory? And I was like, well, I think it's when I was kicking the nun in the shins on the way into play school and I didn't want to be there, and she lifted me up off the ground, against my will, and I was trying to kick her and stuff. So I think that might be my earliest memory. And then it dawned on me, well, our kids don't have to think about what their earliest memory is, because when they're 18 or 19, they're just going to stick in a USB or probably a virtual headset. Think about this.
Right.
They'll probably be able to convert all the photographs and videos that we have into a virtual world for them, so that when they're 20 years of age, 10 years from now, 12 years from now, they'll be able to stick on this virtual reality world and probably interact with themselves when they were kids. I mean, that's where it's going to go, which is bonkers if you think, because they don't have to really remember. It's just there and accessible for them, and they're going to be the first generation of that,
That word mindfulness you use, though, does seem to come into it.
You know what I mean?
Because there's some sense of there needing to be an antidote to all of this, a sense of simply stopping.
Yeah, because it's like what you're saying. People are just going to, they're going to stop thinking, because everything's going to work for them. The cars are going to drive themselves.
Right.
It will come to an extent, probably not anytime soon, but probably within our lifetime, that you'll have a virtual reality headset on. You'll think a thought, and that information, that thought will just pop up. You won't even have to touch anything.
Sure.
People are now ordering all their food online from Tesco, so that gets delivered to the door. So I suppose then you get a treadmill with a virtual headset on. So why do you need to go to the forest when you can just have a treadmill at home with a virtual headset on, smell the smells, feel the feelings, think the thoughts? There's a danger in it,
So
and we're at that stage now, aren't we?
We absolutely are. So I suppose whether it's a washing machine as technology, or whether it's futuristic self-ordering groceries, or whether it's anything else, I suppose the hope is, isn't it, that we use the time we're given back for something really, really that matters.
Yeah,
well,
that's it.
To actually connect a bit more rather than
why
less.
are we saving
Let
the
technology
time?
support us rather than be the distraction.
I'll tell you, if I get to save that much time, you'll find me on the banks of the shore at 12 o'clock at night catching cod. there's nothing better than catching, in my world, than catching a 10-pound cod that you can eat for dinner, because that, you can't find that in virtual reality anywhere. You can go fishing, but you can't have the cod in your hands unless you order from Tesco's.
We have some fishing simulators over in the lab, so
I'm
you
sure
won't
you
need to
do.
leave the house anymore now to do it.
If you swipe one more time, you can change colours if you want.
Over here somewhere?
One more time. That's it.
Oh, okay, got it.
Just really, this is a good way to stay fit, isn't it? I mean, whatever it is, isn't it? I really realise it.
This is pretty much doing exercise
Yeah,
again.
yeah. I really like that.
But you know what's going to happen? People are just going to start taking hallucinogens and all kinds of things before they do these things.
Yeah,
So it becomes their new reality. You just see all the people in America just getting stoned before they get these things. And then we'll have to cure them as well. Ooh, that's a bit hectic now, that, isn't it? It's kind of breathe for a minute. It's so mad.
This is where the mindfulness comes in.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
There's more worry of being drunk to just staying in this world and tell them what to be about. It doesn't start
look at that. It's just, you just stand there forever just looking at all that stuff. But you will get motion sickness after a while. It's like, phew.
How are you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, okay. I have good sea legs, so. But yeah, I can see how you get
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, just press X on it.
I'm just trying to see. I think I've done all of them, haven't I?
Try smoke, yeah. I'll do it.
I think, like, do you think in 20 years' time, John, people are going to just end up in schools with all these things in their heads?
Well, that's something even Google have a program at the moment. What's it called? Expedition. Where they're trying to make geography and history classes interesting.
Yeah.
You know, so you bring kids to these places, and it makes a lot of sense because, you know, from a resource point of view, they're never going to go far. So, you know, it's pretty cool.
And have you tried hypnotising somebody and put them in this thing?
Yeah, we're doing some prototype work at the moment, actually, with particularly with phobia work. You know, it's kind of obvious for phobias.
Yeah, of course.
Now, phobias are cool, but I'm interested in doing other things with it as well. But yeah, definitely, and it is effective. There's a good body of research growing on it.
Where have you done it out here, though? Yeah.
Yeah, well, here in my clinic, you know, I've got a prototype.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one of the old development kits that it's not as good as the one you're using there, but we've just been kind of running tests on it.
Well, that's the thing, you gotta stay on top of it all, don't you?
Yeah, but as you can see, it's kind of the same thing, really. It doesn't matter what reality you're using; it's the same, making sense of things and you know, helping people to wake up.
Alright, I tap out of this.
Want to tap out of this? Okay. Do you want me to take it off your head?
Sure, yeah.
There's a few
Hope
layers
you
going
enjoyed
on
it,
there.
everyone. Thank you.
Man, come back out of that, doesn't it?
That's what I mean.
Get
It's
lost
the
in it.
interesting bit. It's that transition.
Perfect. Thanks, Susie. Thanks.